Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Family Fortunes, Securing Your Child's Legacy. My name is Michael Dopesi, and I'm thrilled to be your host and moderator for today's session. First and foremost, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you joining us from various locations. Whether you're tuning in from your home, your office, or on the go, we're delighted to have you with us. The topic for today's webinar is one that resonates deeply with many of us. Ensuring our children's future and securing their legacy is a concern that spans across generations. Today, we're going to explore many facets of the critical topic, and from financial and investment to legal considerations and education aspects of legacy building. We have an outstanding panel of experts with us who will share their insights and experiences. Throughout the webinar, our experts will delve into strategies and practical tips that you can implement to secure your child's legacy. We'll cover a range of topics, including the importance of early financial planning, investment strategies for long-term growth, financial instruments and the role in legacy building, and also educational aspects of leaving a legacy. We encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions and engage our panelists. Please use the Q&A feature in the webinar platform to submit your questions at any time. We will address as many as possible during the Q&A session at the end. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Let us get started on this important journey of securing your child's legacy. Without further ado, I'd like you to meet our first panelist. Our first panelist today is Mrs. Anu Akinola. She is the Center Director and founder of Extra All Kids Child Care Centers. Thank you very much. You're welcome to be with us.
It's a privilege to be here.
Okay. Our second panelist today is Ifoma Uba Onubogo. She's the head of trust and estate planning at Investment One Financial Services. Yes. So I'd like to give a brief introduction to Investment One. Investment One is a global financial services group dedicated to providing comprehensive solutions to meet the diverse needs of investors. As a leading group in financial services industry, we specialize in financial advisory, wealth management, estate planning, project financing, and securities brokerage. Committed to excellence and integrity, we at Investment One focus on helping our clients achieve their investment goals with confidence and clarity. With a strong emphasis on market insight, we tailor our services to meet the unique objectives and preference of each individual and organization we serve. As a firm deeply rooted in Africa and keen on celebrating African artistic expressions, Investment One is proud to actively sponsor the African Photography Organization, which showcases Africa's beauty and diversity through the lens of talented photographers. At Investment One, we are dedicated to shaping a brighter future through strategic investments, innovative solutions, and a steadfast commitment to our clients and communities. Join us on a journey where possibilities meet prosperity, and together let's build a future of financial success. So today, we'll be discussing the scope of our discussions today is financial planning and investment strategies for your child's future, the importance of adequate education in securing a child's future, integrating educational, financial planning for a holistic approach, practical tips and real-life examples from the panelists' experiences, and information on how attendees can connect with Investment One for further assistance. So yes, I would like to start off with questions for our panelists and, have them share from their experiences. So first of all, Mrs. Akinola, how does a child's overall development influence the future legacy of the child and their family?
I'd like to first say thank you very much to Investment One for having me here today. This is a privilege to be able to share. Well, I'll start by answering this way. You've asked about how does the child's overall development influence the future. So what's the child's overall development? I would like to term it as being the total development of a child. So when you're talking about that, you're talking about something holistic. You're not just talking about the cognitive development, because that's really what a lot of parents focus on. I want my child to be smart. I want my child to be tops, an high flyer. But when we are talking about overall development, you're talking about not just the cognitive, which is important, but you're also talking about the physical growth, the physical well-being, the social and emotional well-being, which most people don't even know that is existing. We just assume a lot of things when it comes to that aspect. So their social well-being, their emotional well-being, their emotional intelligence growth. And then also, we can also look at of course, I've talked about cognitive, their physical, also, you can also look at the spiritual well-being of your child as well. So when you look at all that, you are actually talking about wholesome development. So how do you ensure that your child has wholesome development? I think really what you need to look at is how your child starts. The early years will determine the rest of your child's life. I think one of my most favorite quotes is this quote that says that the first 5 years determine the next 80 years. So the foundation of your child's life, the foundation is laid at the early years. So, I remember that I attended a course, by Foladiola. In that statement he made, it was a business training, but it never left me. And I've used it even in my family, in seminars and all. And he said something, he said, when you start well, you grow well. Exactly, that's what happens. If you understand that the foundation of a child, or if you're going to build a house, the foundation is going to determine the structure, is going to determine even the architectural drawing, it's going to determine the height of the building. Then you know that your child's legacy is dependent on the foundation that you lay. In essence, if you want to build a skyscraper, you cannot lay the foundation of a shanty. You know what is going to happen? It's going to come crumbling down. They say that if the foundation be destroyed, what can people do? The righteous can't do anything. So the foundation is very important, and you must go back and think right now about what foundation have you laid at the early years. Because the truth is, if the foundation is faulty, you have to go back to the beginning. You are not going to build right if the foundation is faulty. So that foundation is very important. And why is the foundation important? Because at that time is the time that the brain is developing. You see what is happening at the early years, those early experiences that are molding the life of a child, that are laying, that the foundation for lifelong learning is laid at that time, because at that time is when the brain is forming. So 90% of the child's brain is formed by age 6 or 7. So the work has been done. It's like you want to build a house and you are not planning on what kind of house you want to build. So 90% of that child's brain has been formed. It means that whatever you have set at that time, the foundation for emotional well-being, for a child to be able to trust, for a child to make financial decisions. In fact, there has been research by the University of Cambridge that says, because I know we're going to be talking about a lot of finance here, that says that by age 7, a child has developed his relationship with money. So the attitude, the mindset of which the child is going to have has been developed by age 7. So early experiences really matter. So what parents or people watching should really be thinking now is that, what am I doing at the early years of my child? Because that's the foundation. Having said that it's important for positive growth, positive development. I also want you to understand that whatever is done positively and negatively have an influence at the early years. So if there is negative influence on the total development of that child, it will have a negative outcome. So you understand that a child is a gift, but a man is an outcome. So if you expose that child negatively to traumas, neglect, and all, you're exposing that child to adverse childhood experiences, which of course is going to show up when that child becomes an adult. So in essence, if you want to have a legacy, a quality legacy, you start early and you start right.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So I'd just like to give an example. Some countries, they start to teach their children from that young age how to start earning money, yes. Paper runs and all that. We hear that a lot. So it's something that we think people should look into, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Thank you for that. From your perspective, what are the key elements of a comprehensive education program that parents should invest in? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if you look at the educational program, many times we just focus on formal education, but there are different aspects of the education program. You can have formal education, you can have informal education, you can have special education. And like I said, when people, have children, they begin to think of, oh, what school is my child going? A lot of people do not even look at that early foundation that I talked about. They begin to think, oh, I'd like my child to go to an Ivy League. Not understanding that it's what you lay, that you build on eventually. And if your child is going to be able to qualify to go to an Ivy League, then the foundation must have been really strong to withstand the rigors of an Ivy League. So what I want to say is that the focus is not just on early education, even if you are going to invest. You are not just going to invest in formal education, I meant to say. You are going to start thinking about informal education, which usually, a lot of those skills that, when you talk about informal education, you are talking about skills that they learn at home, character development, morals, financial skills. All those things are skills that are informal, that you don't necessarily have to have it in the curriculum, even though I'm an advocate that a lot of those things now should be in the curriculum. But you look at it and you realize that the work of that informal education lies in the home. So when a parent is beginning to think, how do I invest early? You start thinking of, what am I investing in? So you are thinking of formal education. My child should go to a quality school, that they know what they are doing, preparing my child for tomorrow's future. But also informal education. As a parent, what am I bringing to the table? Do you understand? So you as a parent, am I knowledgeable? Because I tell you, one of the greatest things that you can bring to the table as a parent is to be knowledgeable. So what skills do my child need to be able to be functional in today's world? Not just today, tomorrow's changing, ever-changing world. So those informal skills are really important, and you should start thinking of, I need to invest in that area. And then special education. Children are different. All children are special, but some will require special needs more than other children. And so if your child falls in that category, you begin to think, does my child have a special need that I, as a parent, needs to focus on? So having thought about all that, you now start thinking of, what am I really investing? Because immediately we think of investing, we are thinking of money. It's not just about money. First of all, you are investing your time. Remember I said the knowledge you bring as a parent is everything, sincerely, is everything. So if you are bringing knowledge to the table, you are investing your time to be schooled. Maybe you go to a school on parenting, or you try to think, oh, how do I help my child with financial literacy? You are seeking knowledge. So you are investing your time. At this point, I want to tell you that, you see, the time is the currency you are spending. I think that is really getting to the point as a parent that you really are going to have that time. That you are leaving that WhatsApp group, that cliche that people say, I don't have time, I'm busy. Because the thing is that you will spend the time now or later, and spending that time later could be really, really dangerous for you, because at that time, it now becomes more challenging, and then, of course, it might not meet the need, that you want at that time. So, investing your time wisely at that time, knowing what to invest in, and the resources that are needed. What skills does my child need to have at age 2? What skill does my child need to have at age 18 is what you should invest in, the knowledge, and then provide the resources that will help your child to be able to do that. So, of course, if you now look at formal education, you are thinking, what kind of school? How do I choose that kind of school? How do I invest? Of course, like I said, invest in early education. I tell you, sincerely, if your child has good early education, all the others I walk through, how do you know a good school? I think two key things. They are learner-centered, and they are focused on helping the child to be able to thrive in a changing world. So the curriculum, the pedagogy, the professionalism of teachers, the inclusiveness of having parents and all is all inclusive in when you are going to make a choice. But of course, you have that choice to make. Your knowledge will help you to be able to take that choice well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think a major takeaway from what you just mentioned is the time. A lot of parents, I think they struggle with providing that time. It's a very, very challenging and rigorous thing to, when you're working 9 to 5 and, both parents are working, where do you have that time to spend with your child, and when do you have that time to actually connect and, ensure that they have the best? So it's something that is worth considering, and thank you for...
Really about priorities.
Exactly. So, Ifeoma, can you explain why financial planning is critical for securing a child's future, and what are the key components parents should consider when starting this process?
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for the question, and thank you for having me. Thank you, Anu, for your perspectives. It was really interesting listening to you. Okay, so when we talk about financial planning, essentially, it's about planning for the future. I mean, there is a quote that we all know. He who fails to plan is planning to fail. So, of course, when you're talking about your children's education, securing that education, financial planning is critical, especially in the Nigerian context, where you have volatility, economic instability, and all sorts of other challenges. It's important for parents to learn how to financially plan for their children's future. And what are the benefits of this? So first, it ensures educational continuity. So if you plan properly, you are sure that the education of your child will not be disrupted, right? Funds will always be available for whatever level of education you want your child to get to. There won't be disruption. It's very, very important. And then it also helps us to guard against unforeseen circumstances. Life happens. Life is unpredictable. I know that in this part of the world, that is a truth that we do not like to accept. But whether we like it or not, life happens to everybody. And so what financial planning does for you as a parent is ensures that even when you're not around, even in the case of unforeseen circumstances, disability, death, job loss, whatever happens, you know that you have a safety net to ensure the continuity of your child's education. And then it also helps you to even just build a lasting impact, a lasting legacy for your children. It's not just about meeting their immediate needs. It's also about long-term planning. When Anu was talking, she mentioned the fact that some parents want their children to attend Ivy League schools. Ivy League schools are not cheap. You have to plan for them, right? And so how do you do this? First, in terms of the components or the things that parents need to take into consideration, budgeting, of course, we all know. First, you have to budget, right? So budgeting and saving. And then, of course, we all know the rules of budgeting. Your budget should be realistic. And one of the ways to even make sure that you have a realistic budget is that you would have done your research and estimated educational costs. What are those things that I need to pay for in terms of tuition, school fees, and all other things related to the developmental needs of your child? Then setting clear goals. So what are those goals that you have for your child? We've just talked again about how some people want their children to attend Ivy League schools. I know Anu was talking about, the fact that education doesn't just need to be formal. It can be informal as well. So you plan for that, informal education. Oh, I want them to learn coding. I want my child to be a musician. You plan for it. What music schools do you want them to attend? What courses? What are those things that you want them to get involved in? And then in terms of also planning, financial planning, it's important to speak to a financial expert. I know that a lot of parents think that they can do these things for themselves, but the benefit of bringing a financial expert on board is that you are able to tap into their wealth of experience. They have experience with investing, ensuring that the funds or the assets that you're keeping aside for your child's education are properly managed. For parents that don't have that knowledge, they must just go ahead and invest the monies they are keeping for their children in high-risk instruments, forgetting that when you're planning for your child, yes, the objective is not really capital appreciation. The objective is capital preservation. We want to make sure that there is money, there are funds available, for that child's education when needed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ifoma. Something just came to mind when you were speaking about how parents save up for certain things. You can save up for a new car, you save up for a house, you're saving for your mortgage and all. And I think a lot of people neglect that aspect of their children's education and future. You can start saving as little as 200,000, keeping it away. And imagine, for instance, I always hear parents when it's school fees time, they start panicking. But if you had started saving 100,000, 200,000 towards that goal, it makes it easier for you to tap into those funds and take care of your children's needs. Also, would like to go on a short break. I will be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Welcome to the one place of possibilities, a niche for financial success, the one place where your dream is the priority. From wealth management and financial advisory to retirement planning, a place with a dedicated team with various expertise guiding you to financial freedom. One door always opened for end-to-end business solutions. One place to help you exceed expectations. Welcome to The One. For further inquiries, visit www.investment-one.com to get started.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael, for the question. So you're asking the common mistakes that or challenges that parents face when planning for their children's education and what they can do to mitigate those challenges or mistakes. So first, I would like to mention lack of a clear plan. Some parents fail to properly plan for their children's education. In this part of the world, there is a tendency for us to leave a lot of things to, fate, or we'll say the grace of God. The grace of God is important, definitely, but it is also important for parents to sit down and develop clear, achievable goals, right, to securing their children's education. And so when they prepare these goals, they are going to look at what are those things I need to put in place, what kind of savings do I need to make, what kind of investments do I need to make in order to achieve that objective of ensuring that my child's education is secure. I would say the second mistake that I see parents make is procrastination. Leaving that which they can do today till tomorrow. I'm sure we've heard that quote before. Do not put off what you can do today till tomorrow. So procrastination is also a very serious mistake that parents make, thinking that there will always be tomorrow. And why we pray that there will always be tomorrow, the truth is that life happens. As I said earlier, life is unpredictable. Anything can happen, you know. And so once you have the resources, once you feel that you are ready to start planning for your child's education, please start at once. Do not waste any time on it. Another mistake which I had alluded to earlier on was thinking that you can do it alone, thinking that you can go the whole hog alone. You cannot do it alone, right? No matter how much money or funds or assets or resources you think you have, it's important to include a financial expert in your financial planning for your children's education. What a financial expert does is that we bring a different perspective to this exercise. We take into consideration your risk appetite. We look at what your objectives are, the specific objectives you have for your children. We also look into the kinds of investment instruments that you can invest in. We offer proper advice. We ensure that your funds are properly managed so that there is no erosion of capital at the end of the day. Another thing that I see parents do is underestimating the cost of education. I think I talked about this earlier on, which is that it's important to research. You can't say you want to attend an Ivy League school or you want your child to contest in the next Olympics and then you don't have a clear plan, or you're not looking at inflation, economic instability and things that could happen further down the line, which is also why it's very important to speak with a financial expert like what we have in Investment One Financial Services Limited. I think that the last thing I would like to talk about is where parents just leave everything to chance, essentially, or leave it to other people. So I hear parents say, oh, my PA is going to handle it, or my brother will handle it, or my sister, or my wife, or my husband. But you know, when you're talking about children, it takes the effort of two parents, mother and father, if they are both available. And it's very important for them to be directly involved in the financial planning for their children's education. It's important for them to be on top of things when it comes to their children. Do not leave things that relate to your children. Do not leave the security of your child's education to other third parties. You must be involved. Even financial experts, we can advise, we can give you all of the expert advice we can, but eventually the decision is left to you. It is important that you are there every step of the way, right? Understanding what is happening, making those decisions that would impact your child in the long run.
Ms. Lani, can you share some practical strategies parents can use to support their children's overall development while ensuring overall financial security?
Okay, so let me share those practical things that you can do, because now we're talking about overall development and financial stability. Balancing the two sometimes can really be challenging, especially you know, in today's world or in a family that has limited resources. Everybody has some limitation. So when there's the situation of limited resources or in an economy that is fluctuating, you are thinking, oh, you are saying I should invest, I should, you know, give my children quality education. How do I balance the two? So I believe that the first thing, and I think Ifoma already mentioned that, is that understanding that there are some basic things that you need to do, and you can't leave it to chance. So it's no longer the season of que sera, whatever will happen will happen. At least my parents didn't give it more touch. I turned out well. No. You could have probably turned out better, sincerely. You don't know what, you know, capabilities or what you could have been if you had better opportunities. So you now have to decide, what do I want to give my child? Because the truth is that we're talking about supporting. You can't support who you don't know. If you have 4 children, those 4 children are going to be different in everything, in temperament, in abilities, in their purpose. They're going to be different. So I'm going back to that knowledge base because if you are going to support, you first of all need to know, who is my child? What kind of person is this child? What kind of temperament? What learning styles? What love language? Who is that child? Because knowing that child's unique personality or ability is going to help you to provide support. So first of all, knowing that if you as a family have taken time, remember I said that time is what you are investing. You can't know somebody if you don't spend time with that person. So like Ifeoma said, you can't delegate it. You can't delegate your job as a parent. Nobody is going to know you. Ideally, your child's teacher shouldn't know your child more than you. So you are spending time to discover who is my child. You are seeking knowledge at age 2. What is my child supposed to be able to do? So having sought that knowledge, as a family, you develop a plan. Ifeoma also said that. So when you don't have a vision as a family, your family will perish. People perish without vision. Nothing changes with time. Things only change with vision. So you are not going to say it's going to get better. Oh, by the time my children are invested, I'm going to have enough money. Who says? Things will change. Anything can happen. You can lose a spouse. I'm sure somebody is saying, God forbid. But God forbid is not a parenting strategy. You have to have a vision. You have to have a plan. What do I want my children to be? If this happens, how am I going to prepare them for that thing that I think they are suited for? Remember, it's not what you want the child to be, but what that child is suited, the purpose of that child. You've discovered it, then you start planning. And then you're looking at this plan, you're thinking, it's going to cost a lot of money. There are things that you can do. Of course, first of all, you prioritize. If you have a vision, you are not going to be behaving the same way with people that do not have a vision. So as a person of vision, it gives you a focus. When other people are doing other things, following trends, you have a focus. Our family, this is our direction. It helps you to be able to keep your focus. That's one. So, of course, have a vision. When you have a vision, then things can go on. Then, 2, you prioritize. So, Ifeoma also talked about budgeting. But I will emphasize, on the fact that you have to prioritize what's important to you. So, what kind of education do we want our children? What kind of curriculum? Where are the schools situated? Then, do I want extracurricular activity? Oh, I want my child to be resilient, to have grit. What kind of, they can get you to taekwondo, for example. Oh, I want my child to be mathematically inclined. Oh, I need to expose that child to music. So you begin to research and then you budget, you prioritize based on what is important to you as a family. What are your family values and goals? So you see, you are creating a system. The truth is that people fail because of lack of system. So if you want to support that child with the means that you have, you must have a system and then begin to work down. Another thing that can work after budgeting, prioritizing, is do it yourself. Sincerely, there are a lot of things that I said you have to do as a parent if you want to get the best within the means that you have. You understand? So expose your children. Some people say, I can't afford. Travel brings a lot of exposure, for an example. And then this parent will say, I can't afford to take my child to France. But do you know that you can take your child to France without leaving France? You can pretend play, you can read it in a book, you can watch it on the TV. That takes a lot of investment. And of course, as a parent, bringing the resources to bring that dream alive. So your child might be in Nigeria and feel like know so much about France that they get that international exposure without leaving, But you hear parents say, who has time to do that? If you don't have time to do that, then you can't get the results that you want eventually. So there's always a time for everything. A seed time and then harvest time. Some people will say, the grass is greener on the other side. No, the grass is greener where it is watered. What are you doing in the life of a child? So a lot of DIYs also utilize free resources. There are free parks, there are so many free things that you can use that. You can also leverage on your community. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I agree totally, of course, but I will put a caution there. You have to decide who the village is because the village can really be ugly sometimes. So you choose who is going to be in my village. Cultivate that village, invest in that village. It could be a group of friends, people that share the same values, with you. You bring them into a village. Their own strengths could be your own weakness. So you are exchanging. Oh, I can do this. Can my child come over and you help my child to be able to do this? So you are helping your child and, not necessarily investing a lot of, financial resources. So that's one of the things that you can do. Another thing I would say is that you can leverage technology. We have a global world now, but I would say leverage technology wisely. You know that my field is the field of early years. And I'm very, very, I always play on caution when we talk about technology. Technology is supposed to enhance learning. It's not supposed to distract it. Your child should not be exposed to technology ideally until they are 2. So it's not the time your child is under 2, the brain is just developing, you're exposing your child to screen. So even as teenagers, preschoolers, or if you're going to expose them to screen, it has to be measured. So screen time has to be, you have to put caution, ensuring that the technology you're exposing them to, which is good, they can, partner with somebody in Italy, learn something from France, and it enhances, their global perspectives without leaving Nigeria. But please, put it with caution because you don't want to have a case of unintended consequences. This is what you plan in your vision, and then something else is coming, other vices that they are getting off tech, or, is distorting their, their mental outlook and all that. So I think really, and another thing that of course, I know that's one of investments, one's passion, is for you to now start thinking that you are saving in advance. So you are having an investment, maybe an educational investment plan in advance. My child is going to secondary school. This is the secondary school in our plan. How do we generate that kind of income? Do we need a second stream of income? Are we growing a passive income so that dream can actually be achieved? So is you starting now because you are looking onward to what is ahead for your child. So I think those tips could really help you using DIY, leveraging the community, and then of course the internet wisely, and I think those.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention also that in Investment One, for instance, we encourage a reading culture, and I know
Absolutely.
from a young age myself, reading always helps me to develop that imagination and mindset. So I think it's something that kids can also endeavor.
Yes, I totally agree to that because, when I talked about DIY, maybe one thing I should have added was that, the parent is the first teacher. So you must understand that when you talk about homeschooling, lots of people just, no, I'm not homeschooling, I'm paying somebody to do it. Whether your child is going to a mainstream school, formal education, there is a point that homeschooling still becomes very important because not everything is going to be taught at the school. If at the early years, we have sensitive periods, we have critical periods. Your child is at a sensitive period when they are young. So meaning, like you said, reading, if you introduce them to reading on time, not just in the school, they come home, you have already formed a bedtime routine that has stories, because it's a sensitive period, you realize that their language development is heightened, is faster, and is deeper than a child that has not been exposed to that. Not only that, like I said, it exposes them to many things that other people are not exposed to. Do you get? So reading is, homeschooling, teaching your children a lot of things are one of the ways that you can really support their development.
Insight. So this is to before. What are some common financial challenges parents face when it comes to investing in their child's education, and how can we overcome them?
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. So, common financial challenges that parents make when it comes to their children's education and how they can overcome them. So first, I'd like to talk about the high cost of education. Education costs are rising. I mean, we all saw what happened last year when federal and state universities effected an increment, some of them almost 200% increment in fees. So you had a child that was paying 45,000 naira in school fees, and all of a sudden they are being asked to pay 200,000 naira because, according to the government, the subsidy on education has been lifted. So the high cost of education is one major financial challenge that parents can face when planning for their children's education. And one of the ways to mitigate this is to start early. So we will always advocate, start early, start the financial planning process as early as possible. Because when you start early, when you start your savings, your contributions early, you allow that money to grow, and then the principle of compounding interest then takes effect, so that over time you can now see the real benefit of that savings culture or that investment culture. I think the second challenge that I would say parents have is fluctuating income. Some parents face seasonal employment. We're looking at economic instability in Nigeria. There could be job loss. There could be the case of business fluctuations for people that run their own businesses. You might not generate consistent income or the type of income you think you should be generating on a consistent basis, and that can be another financial challenge. And so one of the things that we would advise parents to do is to create a dedicated fund, right? Educational fund for their children, just like the Investment One Child Trust. Keep it aside so that even when life happens or when life is lifing, you know that you are not diverting funds that you have earmarked or allocated for your children's education to other things. So it's important to always have that dedicated fund. And it also brings me to the third challenge, which is multiple responsibilities on the part of parents. So yes, I want my child to go to a good school, but I also need to pay rent. I also need to look at their health care. I also need to make sure that they are doing well in other aspects of their life. These things all require money, whether we like them or not. And so that is why it is really, really important. We're emphasizing that point of having this dedicated educational trust fund for your child, knowing that no matter what happens, that fund is there, that resource is there, there will be no disruption, right, to the education of your child. Another challenge that parents could face financially is inflation. So it's something that is outside the control, of a parent. It can go up, it can go down. You cannot control inflation. And one of the things we advise is diversify your investments, right? Diversify your investments as well as your income streams as much as possible, so that you ensure that irrespective of what happens in one area of your finances, the other area is well taken care of. And then there is just limited access to financial education on the part of parents. And what we would usually encourage is you need to pursue financial literacy. It is only when you understand how the market works, when you understand how money works, how the economy works, that you can properly plan. So pursue financial literacy as much as possible. Visit blogs, like Investment One has its own blog. If you visit our website, there are so many influencers that talk about financial planning, investment education. Investment One also has a very robust investment education platform, which you can join. Just go to any of our social media handles, LinkedIn, Instagram. You'll find all the information you need there. So pursue investment education, pursue financial literacy, so that you can come up to speed, you can understand what to do and when to do it. So I think that will be all from me.
I'd also like to ask, could you discuss the service offered by Investment One Child Trust Department and how these can assist parents in planning for their children's future?
All right, thank you very much, Michael. So we're just going to talk a bit about the Investment One Child Trust product. So this is a product that is designed to aid parents in securing the financial future of their children. We've talked here a lot. We have flogged the point about financial planning, about having a dedicated fund in place for the education of your children, and that is what the Investment One Child Trust product offers. That dedicated fund where parents can contribute periodically to, with a view to saving up for the education of their children. And then this fund is not just also for long-term savings, it's also even for the immediate needs of your children. So one of the things that happens is when we manage those funds, we can pay the school fees of your child directly to the school. Even when the parent comes to Investment One asking to access those funds for other uses, they will be turned down, because we will remind them that the core objective of putting together that fund, of establishing that trust fund, was for the child's education. So any other purpose that does not relate to a child's education, their maintenance, their upkeep, their health, will definitely not be honored. And this is a way to also encourage discipline on the part of parents. It also helps parents to be disciplined, to be consistent in savings. You get reminders about making your contributions, whether annually, quarterly, monthly, however you want. We have a flexible and adaptable plan that suits each parent.
It's a product that we feel is essentially, it's very essential for every home. Every home, it's important to have a child trust, and that, like you said, that secures the child's future. And I think it's something that every home should look into and partake in. Mrs. Anu, could you provide an example of how proper financial planning has positively impacted the family's ability to provide quality education? I know you mentioned the Ivy League schools, but
yeah. I won't go to Ivy Leagues. We all know that. Even the thought of Ivy Leagues, most people will just think of, my child has to be knowledgeable enough, outstanding enough to get a scholarship. Because sometimes when you hear of the amount the Ivy Leagues charge, you think, really? But people are going there, and you can just prepare your child to be part of those people that can attend. But I think I will use a personal story to answer that question. My mom, of blessed memory, was a banker. And I learned so much from her. I wish that I had the opportunity of learning more, because now when you are now aware, you are now thinking that I should have used the opportunity a lot better. But one of the things that I noticed about her is that my mom never lacked. Of course, my dad, sometimes he was an entrepreneur, he was working for himself. So there were a lot of instances that you knew in the house that he didn't have. But my mom always had. And for me, I think that was one of the comforts that I have, because do you know that could even traumatize your child, the fact that school fees are not being paid on time. Yeah, it could cause trauma for your child. They can begin to have a wrong relationship with money, if it can, So some kind of fear starts setting in that, no, I'm not cut out for this kind of world. This is not affordable for us. You don't want your child to go with that kind of mindset. I think one of the things that comfort was there with my mom, knowing that all through my education, that finance was available. Because even after she passed, when they say that a good man leaves, this time a good woman left an inheritance. Sometimes, things just drop into my account, and I said, indeed, the memory of the righteous is blessed. So you see, she had planned ahead. Of course, she was knowledgeable about financial planning as a banker, so she had planned ahead such that all of our children could go to primary, secondary, and then university without any, disruption in their education. But I think another example that comes to mind is the example of, someone that I heard, she was talking on the radio last week about how she stumbled on an educational fund like this. And, at that time she was supposed to be saving in dollars. And they were converting for her a naira to dollar. But at that time, she said it was a season of plenty for her. So she was not really feeling that impact of that withdrawal. And that it was consistent. That season of plenty was, consistent for her for about almost 10 years. And that somehow, she didn't have it in the back, the front burner of her mind that she had this money. And then right now, her child is going to university. And she told us that she had like $30,000 in that account. You can imagine, her, that peace, that comfort that, I've been able to do something for my child. Even if your child does not want to study abroad, you know that the whole time my child is going to be in the university, if anything happens, there is some money there. I don't think we can overflog, wise planning in advance. Sincerely, you can't overflog it. We can talk about it again, and we can use many stories. But the truth is, just start with what you have. Start something. I think the most difficult thing for parents is starting. Once your child comes, even before your child comes, open that account, find out. Sometimes we feel that it's bigger than us until you take that first step, and then everything starts falling in place. So have that vision. Start with what you have. Gradually put something in. And I think for me, one of the things that's really been helpful to me is by having a financial coach. I might be knowledgeable in early childhood education, but not as knowledgeable in financial education. And I get somebody to, to help me on this journey, to be able to help me set the reasonable goals. So for me, I'm setting reasonable goals to say, this is how much I need to have invested in the next 10 years for my child to be able to achieve this. So you might not be able to do it on your own. Seek help. Look for someone, Investment One is here, that can partner with you to make those realistic goals, to be able to say, at the end of this year, I want to have been able to save and then invest this amount. How do I do that? I think that's one of the things that has helped me, to be able to do that, getting somebody to help me walk that journey, and then taking those steps one step at a time, actually.
Thank you so much for that. And I think what you just mentioned now feeds into the next question I have for you. And how early should parents start planning financially for their children's education?
I will take you back to earlier than early. So, you said the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago.
Yes.
But the next best time is now. So you might be thinking, I've passed that early stage, you can start now. However, if you're privileged, maybe you're single, you are not married, I think it's at that time that you start planning. The time you know that, of course, eventually I'm going to get married. Because everything rises and falls on your own leadership. What are you doing with yourself now? How are you grooming yourself to be financially responsible? Because the truth is that you're not going to give what you don't have. So you are irresponsible as a man. You are going to bring problems to a responsible woman. And the truth is that it's only 2 holes that should actually come in marriage. So I would say start planning now. Look at your own self. Do an audit of yourself and say, what do I need to know as a single person? Number 1. Number 2, it also helps you to attract the right person. Because can two work together except they agree? So if you don't know what you are lacking, you are not self-aware as a human being to know that these are the things that I lack or these are the things that are my strengths, then you are not going to attract the right person. They say opposite attack. Sometimes I think likes attract as well. Sincerely, if you have been traumatized by a situation, usually you are going to attract somebody that is going to be easy for you to trauma bond. So in not all instances is there opposite that will attract. So you want to attract somebody that has similar values financially as you. So you are starting well as a single person. You are saying, this financial literacy, I can know it. What are they saying? Can they break down this big grammar, these jargons? Can it be something I can relate to? So learn, educate yourself, so that when you come as a couple, 2 wings, it's going to take 2 wings to fly, but those 2 wings are 2 good wings. Do you understand? So I think that you start at that time, and immediately your children come, the knowledge that you have is now what you are transferring. Both of you, because you have the same vision, you are seeing, having the same perspective is easy. So it's not somebody is saying, oh, my child needs to eat well. You say, why? did I eat this kind of food? You know, and then, you know, it becomes a big deal. I've heard of a family that apple, the mother wanted to cook apple for the child. And the man was saying, oh, yeah, you want to start thinking like the rich and the mighty. What does apple have to do with the rich and the mighty? But, you know, what he was just showing her was that they had different perspectives, different background, and there was no way they were going to agree. So you can imagine if they can't agree on their child's nutrition, how are they going to agree on the school? So he's going to think, oh, it's a waste of money. Why would I went to public school. You know, people that argue that way. And I turned out well. And we're looking at this person that is saying he's turned out well. And we know, maybe we should tell him the truth, so he didn't turn out well. You know, and the same plan is trying to have for the child. The child that has a different purpose. So you start where you are. Start now, start early, start at the points that you are now, will be my answer.
Thank you so much. Ifeoma, in your opinion, what are the benefits of setting up a child trust, and how does Investment One Child Trust Department support families in that process? I know you've spoken extensively about it, but what insight can you provide, and how can we help families to set up the process?
All right, thank you, Michael. So in terms of the benefits of setting up a child trust, I would say the most critical benefit is financial security. Knowing that you can go to bed, you know, with that assurance that if anything happens today, my children's education, my children's well-being is secured. So that is the most critical benefit of creating or developing this Investment One Child Trust, right? So financial security. As I said earlier, and I'll keep on re-emphasizing, life happens. Whether or not we pray for it, I know that, I think there was something Anu said, which is that God forbid is not a strategy. God forbid really is not a strategy, you know. The strategy is putting pen to paper and developing that financial plan to secure your children's education. So financial security, that guarantee that whatever happens, my children are doing well. And then having that dedicated savings, you know that there is this dedicated account, there is this dedicated fund where monies earmarked for the children's education has been allocated. So whatever happens, you know that is there. Another benefit is controlled disbursement. So I think I've said it here. We've had instances where we would have parents come and say, oh, my business, things are happening in my business, there is an issue, you know, just give me some, let's take like 20% of the funds, so that was why you brought the money to us. That was why you created that child trust, because you knew, you were guaranteed that we would say no to that request. So we would definitely say no to that request. Those funds were earmarked for your children's education. In fact, we go as far as insisting that we want to pay the fees directly to the school, right? We want to pay tuition fees, uniform, whatever it is, we want to pay directly to the vendors. If your child needs a new laptop, we want to pay directly to the vendors, so that we also are guaranteed that the funds that you allocated for your children's education are being used and applied for that purpose. Okay, so there's also the element of the fact that the funds are being professionally managed. That's also a huge benefit. So you are tapping into our professional expertise. We have a team of trust advisors, a team of investment and portfolio managers who ensure that these funds are properly managed, you know, so that at the end of the day, you are getting very good returns on them. There's one other thing that I would like to mention, which is I've talked about it, you know, where we talk about unforeseen circumstances, but I want to emphasize it, which is that if anything happens to that parent, death particularly, that fund still exists. And it is the responsibility of Investment One as trustees managing that fund to ensure that your children complete their education. So we would continue to pay the fees. When the child wants to move to another level of education, maybe from primary to secondary, from secondary to tertiary, Investment One will work with that child, work with whoever the guardians of that child are to ensure that the child completes their education. And the good thing is, that the funds are protected. So the funds are not in the hands of any family member that can come and divert them. The only thing the family member will be doing with Investment One is just giving instructions. Oh, we need money to pay school fees. We need money to buy books. We need money to pay for extracurricular activities. Those funds are secure. So that is the one guarantee that we give to all our parents. If you do your investments, if you subscribe to the Investment One Child Trust, you are sure that your children's educational future is guaranteed.
Thank you so much. I think one thing to mention also, you mentioned it earlier, funds are paid directly to the vendors or to schools and exactly. So that sort of protects against, like you said, any temptation.
Exactly.
The economy is difficult now, you want to tap into that fund, but no, we pay directly and those small funds don't enter your bank account directly. So I'd like to ask again, this is to Mrs. Anu, how can parents effectively communicate the importance of financial planning and education to their children to instill good financial habits from a young age? I think this is extremely important for...
Very, very important. I particularly like that question. And now we're looking at the informed parents now. We've come a journey. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So we're looking at the informed parent now. I think the first thing I would like to talk about is developing important skills. So if you want to communicate the importance, you have to develop skills. One of the things that a lot of people should be aware as parents is that you need to develop skills in your children. I talked about informal education. This is where it comes in. You need to develop skills. There are some skills, not everything is going to be done by the school. So as early as possible, you are developing executive functioning skills. You are developing skills for independence, skills that can make them to take decisions. So you are withdrawing from that helicoptering as a parent and allowing your children to try and fail. Because at the end of the day, you don't want an unskilled child. An unskilled child is a burden to himself first. He will be a burden to you as a parent. Then he will become a burden to the community. And we see a lot of them. And it starts from when they're young. We always say in our field of education, I don't do for children what they can do for themselves. A lot of parents, you see the child is coming to school, the mom is carrying the bag. Of course, I'm not saying if it's too heavy, you cannot assist your child. But a lot of times, we don't know what this is doing to our child. You can make it into small chunks such that at least your child can participate in that, in that carrying of the bag. Whose bag is it? Is that person's bag? You're doing everything to your child. You're bailing your child out such that the child has lost independence. And then later you start complaining, oh, why can't my child think on his own? Why can't my child do this? Why you are the one that influenced, that decision. I'll give a good example in that area. I remember that when my son was 6, he's 16 now, so that was about 10 years ago. He wanted to buy a school bag. And, we budget. At the beginning, when school is resuming, from they were very young, we write a list. When they were 2, I'm going to the supermarket, I create a shopping list because I don't want a 2-year-old pointing to all the things. So I read to this 2-year-old to say, we're going to the supermarket, these are the things we're buying. You are not allowed to point to what is not on our list. So they grew up with that mentality of a shopping list. And of course, if I want to indulge my child, I create a shopping list for that child and put maybe 1 or 2 items that they desire. So that when they get to that shop, they know that, I can only buy this. Even when I see something that I like, it's not on my shopping list. So they have developed that, that shopping list kind of mentality. So at this 6-year-old, we were resuming school, was back to school. And he had described what he wanted. I remember vividly, he wanted a blue bag, Thomas the Tank Engine. He described the wheel. It was very graphic in his description of what he wanted. So when I got to the shop and we had a budget that he was aware of, I remember it was 6,000 naira. 10 years ago, 6,000 naira is money. But apparently my son had bigger tastes, which isn't bad. But it's not in our budget. So I got to the shop, I realized that this boy that is 6 years old is describing something way above our budget. So I was calling back and forth, and there were 2 women seated in that same shop. And they started to, they were saying in my hearing that I could hear, this is how they spoil children. Why is she calling the child? Is it his money? Why can't she just buy? They were saying it. I was just doing what I was doing. And eventually, I couldn't continue with that conversation. I now told our care at home to bring him to the shop. It wasn't too far from the home. So he brought him to the shop. I showed him that, look, this bag that you are describing is 12,000 naira. It's double our budget. We can't buy that now. Because, I didn't say not because we can't afford it, but because it is not within our budget. We would like to use the other resources for something else. Because you also want to keep an open mindset for your child. You don't want your child to grow with a poverty mentality. Even if you can't afford it at that time, it's better to always give a growing mindset opportunity for your child. So my son started pointing at bags, and immediately points at bags and they sell. He would use mental maths to say, no, I need 4,000 naira more. At 6 years old. So you can see, he was negotiating, he was asking, telling the owner of the shop, oh, but I only have 6,000. Can't you allow me to pay? So look at the negotiation skills, the budgeting skills, all those were coming into play. These women did not leave the shop. They wanted to see the end of the story. So eventually, my son agreed to something within our budget that was not his original. And he was smiling, he was happy. This woman now called me, Ma, please, what school is this boy going? He's very smart, oh. I was just laughing that. Look at the people that have ridiculed me because I just chose not to, respond. So you have to build those kind of skills early. Right now, that child will know that there's a difference between a need and a want. So you are building skills that they can take the decision. Do you understand? So building executive functioning skills is part of that vision you have set. I said we're talking to informed parents now. You have set that vision that by the time my child is 10-year-old, my child can take care of himself, himself. He comes back from school. He's not waiting for mommy to get back from work to be able to eat. So my child can enter the kitchen, light the gas. Somebody say, hey, oh my God, light the gas. You want to get this is the only child I have. It's about teaching that child dangerous things carefully. Because that's where resilience, grit, all those things that make financial decisions easy is built. So you are building those skills and you are growing with your child. By the time your child is 18, you have decided, by the time in our own home, by the time our child is 18, we want the child to have some level of financial independence. So that child, it means that right now, he has a business, he understands how to run that business, he understands what he needs to do with the finance, how to sell. Do you understand? So, but if you've not set that goal, you are not going to be able to walk up to that goal. And the truth is, one of the definitions that, it was my husband that gave me that definition that really expanded the benefit of setting a goal. Is that it says, if you don't have a goal post, some people say, oh, I set goals, it doesn't happen. But do you know that if you don't have a goal post, you can't score? Because there's no define, you don't even know if you've won. So it's important that you set that goal. So develop necessary skills. Teach the value of money early. Let them understand what it means to work and earn. Let them start volunteering. Send them to shops. A lot of people are afraid, oh, they kidnap my child. There's no lion anywhere. Sincerely, if you don't try to build those skills now, your child is going to grow up and be dependent on you, and then you start using the term a fool at 40. A fool at 40 is somebody that was not skilled early on. So if you don't want a fool at 40, you need to do that now. So teach them the value of money. Let them start to do something by themselves, small jobs, change the tire, watch somebody's car. They're not slaving. They are learning entrepreneurial skills that will be valuable to them. And as they make those small money, open a piggy bank. Let them have the joy of, they open the piggy bank and say, oh, I did this. Is helping your child, to develop the right skills that are necessary. Okay, so also start age-appropriate lessons early. I think I talked about that already, as in make sure that you are teaching about, shopping lists, about debts and credits. Let them understand the concept early. It's what they grow with. And remember I told you that there's a research that has been done by the University of Cambridge about that your children will develop their relationship with money by age 7. So it means that the time you really have, the window period that you have to teach these valuable lessons are short. It does not mean it cannot be taught after. It just means that it's going to be much more harder. At that, before 7 is like wet cement. Whatever you print on it will stay. So it's good for you to think. Another thing, practical tip that you can do is to give allowance. Don't give them weekly allowance, so that when you give them that allowance, they can learn what it means to budget. So like my own children, they know, there's a percentage that is their tithes, because that's part of our family value. Remember, vision. Then there's a percentage that is their savings. Also, they understand that at some point, when their friends celebrate birthdays, I buy the gift, you have to do that. But at a time, I begin to wean them off that. Meaning that, you have an allowance. You can save up for a gift for your friend. It's your grandmother's birthday in two weeks' time. You save up for the gifts of people that you love. So you begin to wean them off some of those things to make them responsible. Let them buy data themselves as they grow older, when they have the privilege of having a phone. So begin to wean them off. Let them be able to do, jobs. And of course, I think the final thing I will say there is that it still talks about skilling them. Make them responsible. Make them responsible. Don't bail them out of everything. Let your children learn valuable skills. Skills, that can benefit them in life. I think that when we're talking about financial skills, it's not just about the financial skills. So if your child goes to work in a shop, there was a summer that one of our goals was that my son will be able to work in a shop, and he was going to earn money. So we asked him to write he was going to write an application letter. That was a skill that he was developing. He went for an interview. They accepted him. He didn't feel comfortable, he was not happy, because he thought that working in a shop was demeaning. You can imagine, where did he get that from? But by the time he was able to work in that shop all through the summer, he gained a lot of boldness. He understood that there is value when his self-esteem was also held, because he was providing value. It was not like he was stealing. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So he eventually, by the time he went back to school, they were doing market day. He is a shameless marketer, because he has been rejected many times. So he advertises to somebody doesn't buy. He feels bad, but he knows that I have these goods I have to sell. So he learns valuable skills. Not only that, he was commuting. So he was learning skills of independence. I can go to the shop and come back, and nothing will happen to me. Look at the skills. So there are a lot of skills that your child will be learning on that journey. Not just, he will achieve financial independence, but there are other skills that he will learn as he goes on that journey. At the end of the day, you are having a child that you'll be proud of. A child that, can stand on its own. It's not calling mommy, it's not mommy's boy, mommy's girl. In the quotes, mommy's girl, mommy's boy. It could be affection, but in that sense, it's not depending on you. You have won your child even at an early age. And you will see a lot that it's not just about cognitive. They are learning social skills on the job. They are learning presentation skills. They can relate with strangers, and all that. And you will notice that not everybody, even in today's world, not all your friends have, those skills that have been built. So you'll be doing your child a lot by involving them in all those things earlier.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I just want to mention something. I know if you hear about a lot of Fortune 500 companies, the chairman or the people that are in charge, once they want to hand over to their children, they usually tell them to start from the mailroom and build your way up. Learn the vital skills that will be required one day to lead the company. So you must learn your marketing skills, you must learn your sales skills, you must learn the technical skills, and all that, that builds the capacity for you to then lead. Thank you so much for that. And you also mentioned as well, your quote according to your size, learn how to live within your means.
Yes.
So that's what you said
Yeah,
you're doing for your kids.
It's a valuable
It's
skill
extremely
to teach,
valuable.
to teach
Extremely
children.
valuable. Okay, thank you so much. Ifoma, this is for you. The question is, can you provide some insight into the different investment options available for parents to secure their children's financial future? And how can Child Trust Department help in making these choices? And how can we be contacted?
Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
So in terms of the kinds of investment options that parents can subscribe to when planning for their child's education, I mentioned it earlier, so we would typically advise low-risk investments because you want to preserve capital. The idea is to ensure that funds are available when required for your children's education. So low-risk investments, you have fixed income, government bonds, mutual funds, commercial papers, and treasury bills. For investment one, those are some of the things that we would invest those assets in. In terms of our child trust product, I hear a lot of parents say they don't have money, they are not ready to start, they are waiting to save some huge amount of money. But I would like you to know that a minimum subscription amount of 500,000 naira is all you need to get started on your child's educational journey. Once you deposit 500,000 naira with us, we speak with you, we let you know the various investment options that we have, the interest rates, and then we're good to go. There will be the legal documentation that we have to deal with. We would usually have what you call a trust deed, which is an agreement between the trustees who are Investment One Financial Services Limited, as well as the parents. You state your children as the beneficiaries. And I'd also like to state that this service can be subscribed to by parents, grandparents who want to plan for their grandchildren, even friends and family of probably a deceased parent, colleagues of a deceased parent. So it's not just for the parents alone. Friends and families, well-wishers who desire to plan for the educational future of their wards or those around them can also subscribe to this service. Typically, the way the Investment One Child Trust product works is that once the minimum subscription amount is made, that's when the trust is funded. There will be annual contributions. So with a minimum amount of 500,000 naira, there is a minimum annual contribution of 200,000 naira. This doesn't have to be paid in one bullet. It can be paid monthly, it can be paid quarterly, it can be paid periodically, provided that parents are able to meet the 200,000 naira annual contribution plan. And then we would typically advise that withdrawals are not made until after a period of 1 year, so that the funds can be put to work and can generate returns, from which you can then start to cater to your children's education. There is a trust fee also attached to it. The funds are professionally managed. They are put in a pool and they are managed by our investment management team. There is no charge for the management of those funds. And there's regular reporting, regular monitoring of the funds. So we don't just invest the funds and go to sleep. We're monitoring them. We're monitoring the market to ensure that those funds are preserved for the child and for the parents. So essentially, we're inviting parents, guardians, well-wishers to subscribe to this product to ensure the financial security of their children's education. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think we have some questions from our viewers for Ifoma. So it says, how can Investment One help to open and manage a child's trust for a client with no relatives? And if the client is no more, how will he or she be sure that the trust would reach out to the children and ensure that they are properly taken care of?
Okay, so that's a good question. I like that. I believe I mentioned it when I was talking earlier that this product is not just for parents who are planning for their children. We've had cases where colleagues, of an individual who passed away, colleagues maybe in the same department or in the same office come together to set up this child trust fund for their dead colleague's child. So that is possible. What happens is that those who come together to set up the trust, they are called the settlers. They come to Investment One. We advise them on the various investment options and packages which we have. We enter into a trust deed with them. So another thing I would like to state is we're regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So the fear of whether the parent is dead or not dead and whether the funds will get to the child should not arise. We're a regulated entity. As trustees, we have a fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries of that trust to ensure that the monies that have been kept in our hands to be managed for the education of those children are properly utilized for that purpose. So all you need to do is just contact us. Probably our email address and numbers will be shown on the screen. You can send an email to trustteam@investment1.com, trustteam@investment-1.com. Once you send us an email or you drop a comment in the chat box from whatever social media platform you're joining from, and we will reach out to you with more information about the various packages and how we operate our child trust product.
Okay. Also, just to ask another question, I think this one is also a very important question. It says, how often should parents review and update their financial and estate plans?
Okay, so we would typically advise, for an estate plan, we would typically advise you can review it every year. Your financial plans as well, review them every year. So this is because you have to adjust and take into consideration changes in your income, changes in expenses, changes in your financial situation, changes in your assets. So for an estate plan, you're looking at changes in the assets. Probably some assets you listed in the original estate plan have been sold, or you have added to those assets. And then for those who may be wondering what an estate plan is, an estate plan is a tool that we use to plan for what happens, in simple terms, what happens to an individual's assets after that person is no more, right? So part of what the trust team does is to safeguard the assets, preserve wealth, and ensure the seamless transition of assets from one generation to the other. So an estate plan can be a living trust, it can be a will. At least the word will be familiar to a lot of our listeners. But there's also the living trust. So those tools are part of what you call an estate plan. And so it is good to review those estate plans at least on an annual basis, to adjust for changes in your personal circumstances.
I can direct this to Ms. Anu. Who said, what are some effective ways to save for a child's future if the parents have a variable income? Yes, to save for a child's future if the parents have a variable income.
Comes is that there are ups and downs.
Exactly.
So when there are ups and downs, the time that you have ups, save, invest. Not just saving. I think the word now is investing. Because the saving might not really yield what you want. So you are looking at something that is going to be on the long run. So talk to a financial person so that that money that you have at that time is used properly. So I think that's the first thing. You invest, and then you also start to think about how can I improve myself or my capacity as a parent so that I have other streams of income, or maybe what we call passive income. So that even if I have, ups and downs, there are other things that can be coming in. So I think for that parent, my advice to you will be, sit down and look at what you have as a couple. Then look at the skills that you have that you are not monetizing. A lot of people they have money on the table and they are not utilizing it. Do you understand? So it could be other skills that can work for you passively, and you are investing that stream of income so that when the highs are there, you are saving. When the lows are there, you have at least something to fall back on. I think one other thing that was taught was, having an emergency fund. So you can start building it when you have that high season, So, and you should look at your finance as seasons, like seed time and harvest time. If it's seed time and you are eating the seed like it's a harvest, when it's harvest time, there's really going to be nothing, So I tell my children, if you are sowing excuses, I can't, I will not, I do not. When it's harvest time, you are going to have a truckload of I can't, I will not, I do not. So make sure that during that season of seeds, you are sowing the seeds so that you have something at the season of harvest. So that my advice to that parent is to look outside. Everybody has something else. You have not just tapped into, the benefits of what you still have on the table that you can monetize or invest in.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, can I just
yes,
add
you can
to,
add, definitely.
So in terms of variable income, just like she said, it doesn't come all the time. So another good tip will be to adjust your budget as your income, as you get income. So it's important for individuals to resist that temptation to increase their spending
appetite
when their income increases, right? So instead, allocate that excess income to the savings or to the emergency fund, as she mentioned. So that's another way to plan your finances when you have variable income.
When Warren Buffett that has lived in the same house since 1952 and is a multi-billionaire, and it just shows how they are taught those financial skills. So this last question is for Ifeoma, and I think it's actually a very important question that a lot of people have an interest in. And it says, how can a family manage intergenerational wealth transfer effectively? Moving from one generation to the rest without squandering. We've heard of the stories of sometimes they say those generational wealth don't last till the third generation because they tend to be squandered. So how can they manage the wealth transfer effectively to preserve wealth?
Okay. So in terms of managing intergenerational wealth, we said it here. He that fails to plan is planning to fail. So the first thing is really, really planning. And what does planning entail? Have an estate plan. A lot of people, especially in this part of the world, just leave things to chance. It cannot happen, God forbid. My time has not yet come. You just hear all sorts of things. But it's important to plan. And as you said, there's been a study, a survey that shows that even in the world over, generational wealth does not get to the fourth generation in the Americas. In Africa, it's even worse. It doesn't get to it's by the second generation, generational wealth is lost, right? So creating an estate plan, and it's something that we can help individuals to do. Now, an estate plan is not just developing a will or having a living trust. No, it also goes further, even to talk about your businesses. There's also what you call in estate planning, there's also the business continuity plan, where an individual or a HNI is stating that if anything happens to me, these are the instructions I am leaving to my trustees to manage my business, and then we discuss with the client. We also like to advise clients, when you're running a business, get your children involved. Yeah. We have stories of Indian businesses, a lot of them, the Lebanese, you see them passing their wealth to the third, the fourth, the fifth generation. The businesses are being run by their children. Even here in Nigeria, we know stories of some of those businesses. They are being run by their children, and they are run excellently well. And the question is, how are they able to do that? Because they have a proper planning in place, to ensure that even from a young age, just as she mentioned, you are ensuring that that child has an interest in the business, and that you're planning for what would happen if the child happens not to have an interest in the business. So you're really, really planning on how I can leave a legacy. So these all form part of what would be contained in an estate plan.
I would like to add that, when she was talking about involving your children, I think one of the mistakes that parents make is that they might involve their children. So they ask the child to come along, but they're not involving the child in the business. Day-to-day, like, let the child's hands get dirty. So you're saying, oh, my child is too young, he does not understand, but you realize these businesses have been passed on from generation. It's not necessary that your child will have that interest, because the truth is that your child will have their own interest. For example, I have a colleague that, an older colleague that has a school. The school is doing so well, very well. And, I started talking to her about succession. And I asked her, she said, my child is a financial analyst, but he has an understanding of how the school is working. Because she had been involving them, telling them her challenge, telling her children the challenges. The children have been working in the school. They don't want to be an educator, but they can eventually maybe be on the board. They understand how the school is run, and they can help their mother to plan the sustainability of the school. So I think it's not just about just taking them to your shop or taking them to your office, but involving them early. You don't have to force them to go in that line, but let them know what is involved, And then the second thing I was going to add is that it still boils down to teaching valuable skills. If the first generation has built this wealth, and you didn't carry along the second generation, they will just come and use buy wig, flanger, because they do not understand the value of money. But if you have taught them, you've taught them with skills, they understand what it means for hard work. Even though this money is existing, there's hard work, valuable skills. For example, I'll give you one example before I close, to say that my son was going to go to a mechanic workshop. And then one of our friends said, why would you send him to a mechanic? Isn't that too rough? And I said, rough? Why? Why is that rough? How will he learn strength? How will he learn resilience, grit? He wants to learn how to drive. Can he change a tire? Do you understand? So those things are learned on the field of work, not sitting down and reading them in textbooks. So I think one of the things that person should consider is to put the children on the field of work. Let them understand value of hard work. Let them understand the value of exchange. If I don't do something well, I should not get the value of money. You understand? So I think those two things also could help.
Yeah, to put them, start from the mailroom.
Yeah.
Start to get your hands dirty while you build up. So I'd like to have your final thoughts on this discussion today. I think I'll start with our guest, Mrs. Anu. Thank you.
Okay, it's really been a privilege being here. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Foma. And I think my final word would be to parents is that the ball is in your court, sincerely. Everything will rise and fall on your leadership as a parent. Don't procrastinate. If there's anything you've heard today, write it down and set it as a goal to start now. Because you think you don't have time. 10 years' time, what would you have achieved? So don't think, oh, I've lost time, it makes you discouraged. Start now. Wherever you are, start doing those little things. Start helping your children to be able to get to that desired future. Don't delegate parenting. I think that would be my final thing. Don't delegate parenting. You have a lot to do. Please, play your part so that we all can enjoy the benefit of wholesome children. Thank you.
Much. And Ifoma.
Okay, so for me, I would say, for parents, I would like to ask a question. Can you cast your mind back to your starting days? Maybe as a child, as a teenager, or as a young school leaver. What were those things you wished were in place to give you a soft landing, to help you transition, into the next phase of life seamlessly? If you think about that and if you can answer that question, the charge that I would make to you is ensure that if you lacked those things, ensure to put those same things in place today for your children. And as Anu said, do not dilly-dally, do not procrastinate, do not waste time. It's not enough to attend webinars, listen to podcasts. It can only be effective if you are executing the things that you are hearing on a day-to-day basis. I know some of you have notes that are full of nuggets. Are you implementing those nuggets in your day-to-day life? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to our listeners. We hope you learned a thing or two from these insightful panelists. And like Ifeoma said, we hope you implement these things that you've learned today into your daily lives. They are essential skills, and there are things that you can leave for your children to ensure, like you said, they have the soft landing. So we hope that you reach out to us, and we are always available to help you achieve your investment goals and achieve all your financial goals as well. Thank you very much.